All right, I did just record like a 3 minute voice note and then I deleted it because I was taking way too long. But I think honestly, there's multiple different levels to it. My pinnacle spiritual enlightenment, the best kind of thing that I've managed to, it's not even, I was going to say stitched together, but like the pinnacle experience that I've had, like about 130 trips deep into my investigation, so to speak. Like I've had many breakthroughs and they all feel like enlightenment. Like just a mystical psychedelic experience can feel like an awakening or spiritual enlightenment. Typically, spiritual enlightenment is known as, like a lot of it in the Buddhist schools and stuff is often spoke of as like no mind, where basically say like people can be depressed or have all sorts of like mental problems, right? Basically, it's almost like the mind unconsciously thinks, and people don't know that it's happening. So like, say you can be depressed laying down in bed in the dark, right? And your mind can spin all these different stories and you can feel really horrible about everything that your mind is spinning. And I think a form of spiritual enlightenment is like raising awareness of the field of consciousness and like quieting the mind to the point where you can actually see the mind. Yeah, like a typical, but that is one dimension of enlightenment. That is far from the pinnacle of enlightenment or radical states of awakening or God consciousness, I would call it, where like so yeah, like a lot of typical like grounded like meditation, if you look at like the teachings of Buddhism and meditation and spiritual enlightenment, especially that phrase, they would say like, yeah, instead of like believing your thoughts, you're either like basically unconsciously creating or you're consciously creating. So that's one level of it, where like you basically you see your thoughts from a higher level of awareness, and it's almost like they become kind of external, where that your thoughts are like just the same almost as like a passing cloud. It's like they come and they go, and instead of going, "Oh, my life's so shit, man," and like you just bask in that sentence and like you actually believe in it. Like I remember when I used to be like depressed and things sometimes in the past, and like yeah, you can spin all these sorts of stories, like, but your mind is like creating this narrative that you believe in, and then you like just feel like shit because you actually think that that is true, but you're actually just in a quiet room and your mind is just talking, and you're just like, you're not aware enough to see what your mind is doing. That's one level.
Oh, wicked.
But I think, yeah, my pinnacle awakening, like, yeah, it depends. So I've always been very interested in the nature of reality and philosophy, mysticism, spiritual teachings, and like psychedelic awakenings. And I've listened to countless lectures. And so, like, what I'm saying is potentially it actually takes a long time to work up to some of the deepest spiritual realizations. So, like, yeah, I think there are some levels of awakening that you'll hear a lot of, because a lot of these public intellectuals can contrast in what they define as spiritual awakening. Some people will just say, yeah, it's quieting the mind and being in a state of no mind. That's what the Buddhist would kind of say. But it goes much deeper than that. Like, it depends. For example, the Buddhists teach a teaching of no self, which is like basically the idea that you are separate from the world is no more than an idea in the cognitive realm. But people don't understand how deep that goes. But and that kind of coincides with turning off the mind, quieting the mind, because you don't realize how much, to an extent, your mind is like creating reality. It's like a game of beliefs. But I find so like my peak breakthrough, it was on 12 dried grams of Liberty Kappa magic mushrooms, and again, I'd been doing like this philosophical investigation for a long, long time, and this is an aspect of spiritual enlightenment or awakening, or it's like in society at large, like it's actually taken as like a ideology or dogma or an assumption that you can't know the answers to reality. Like, why is there something rather than nothing? Oh, no one knows. You can't know. Like, basically, I call bullshit on that, in terms of like, I think maybe it is impossible to grasp everything with the mind, because like being becomes comes before the mind. Um, but I think, I don't know, like I think you potentially, in my experience, you actually like what science deems impossible. Like that's what a lot of spiritual awakening is like realizing that the material paradigm is fucking stupid and impossible. Like there's a lot of gaslighting in culture where like science just believes that we're on a rock in space, flying through space in a random direction, and we are some bacteria on a rock, and this is us, and the rest of the world is not us.
Yo, Barry.
And basically, on this, I did hear your voice note about the water and stuff partly, but I just want to answer this question. Sorry, I don't mean to ramble on and drag it out for so long, but just to conclude on the what is spiritual awakening and stuff. Ultimately, like to distill it into words fails because words are finite. I think reality and consciousness is infinite. That's not really a thought. Like basically you can become like directly conscious of absolute truths. That's what I define as awakening in a way. Instead of telling you what awakening is, like I could say reality is infinity, infinity is love, love is God, consciousness never ends, consciousness can never die, the universe is eternally awake. I think yin and yang is that distills it. As above, so below. Everything needs contrast. That is spiritual awakening. Just that phrase, everything needs contrast. Things like that, if you just deep that long enough, things will shift even externally. Like, so what do I define as spiritual awakening? Yeah, that's a good one actually. So, look, basically, let me just tell you this story quick time. Once upon a time, I took 12 dried grams of magic mushrooms. This is in synergy with good health, consistent philosophical investigation, listening to a lot of lectures, doing my own YouTube talks and lectures and reflecting on those, doing personal development in general. I don't think a lot of that is necessary. But I'll try and cut to the chase. Look, this experience, I took 12 grams of mushrooms and I had many personal revelations about past traumas and things like that, but that's still coming from separation. Basically, right, you know when you go to sleep at night and you can dream like an entire world, you can dream that you are with your friends, you can dream that you're at your old job or something, and you can dream all sorts of different landscapes and that. But ultimately, that is all happening within your mind. Even if you take a scientific materialist paradigm, like you go to sleep and your brain is supposedly sorting through memories, and that is creating these kind of dream hallucinations, right? Like, to an extent, how do we not know that we're not dreaming now, just on a different level? I don't want to sound arrogant or nothing, but like some of like the highest absolute truths that I've broke through to is really that this is a dream. And basically on this 12-gram trip, which keep in mind is a double heroic dose, for fuck's sake, and it can take a long time to work up to these more absolute like breakthroughs, because again it goes beyond just stilling the mind. Like sometimes you actually need to build like an intellectual framework to know how to interpret the psychedelic experiences and things. But like basically, if this was a dream, take the dream analogy I said a second ago, like, do you see how the entire dream, obviously when you go to sleep at night, the whole dream is being dreamt within your mind or your brain, supposedly, is what science tells us, right? So do you see how that makes the entire dream actually your brain? So there is no other in the dream because it's all happening within your mind, right? Well, basically, I seemed to become absolutely conscious that there was no other, and that it was actually all me. So I guess it would be like a very high state of ego death. But this is like 130 trips deep. It took me a long time to get to this point. And with this, everything collapsed into like pure synchronicity. So this is what I mean by it goes beyond turning off the mind. I mean, literally, I'm literally teleporting around and shit, astral traveling. I'm so conscious I can barely talk, I can barely eat. All I can say is finally, like that's all that was happening to me. It was like, everything I looked at was me. Like if I looked at other people and everything, like it's fucking terrifying. But then it's to the point, like it's hard to explain synchronicity, but like I was laying in bed and for ages, yeah, and my phone literally by itself played this song that had a lot of meaning to what was it happening to me in that exact moment. And I'd had hours of synchronicity. And as soon as that happened, I knew that basically, if it was all being dreamt within the same mind, then no wonder it can collapse into synchronicity because it's all interconnected. It's like, you know, yeah, take the dream analogy. But yeah, that's what I'm saying is, yeah, there's no other, it's all interconnected. It's all being dreamt by the same source. It's like, the prism. Have you seen the Pink Floyd album cover where there's a white light that goes through a pyramid and then it disperses into a rainbow? Our individual egos and stuff, we're the rainbow, but it's all ultimately being sourced from the white light. And the white light is the Godhead, which is infinite consciousness. But yeah, that was my peak experience. And then I've had more, so I would call that more absolute, where you realize like God's mind is dreaming everything and infinite consciousness can never die, yin and yang, as above, so below. That's like absolute. But then on 7 grams, about a month before, I had a more like relative awakening where like I literally like I was laying down by the lake smoking some weed in the sun, grounding on 7 grams of shrooms, and I sun gazed with the sun, and I just like became the sun, and I got like this major vision from the sky, and it was like, bro, it was like a plot twist. It was like I was in a movie where like it's hard to explain, man. It was like I'd shifted to a new fucking earth and everything was made out of pure light, and it was like I can't even explain it, bro. Like half of I seem to be perceiving some human beings as like fucking, like some humans were on our side and some humans were like from a different alliance or some shit. I know how mad that sounds. Yeah, I never liked entertaining these ideas. Like that's more like fluffy kind of. But like, yeah, I think you can have a more relative awakening, like a political awakening into conspiracies, which is what I kind of thought it was originally when I found traumatic. I thought awakening was realizing the government's full of shit, realizing that the food is poison, realizing the vaccines are poison, or most of them. And I thought that was awakening, realizing that the government is full of shit. But then as I kept taking psychedelics, eventually, like the entire dream just collapsed to the point where like, yeah, you're literally like, the whole thing dissolves into like a pure white light of love. And you're literally flying through everything you've ever known. I haven't had like no past lives type thing. I don't know, but yeah.
I completely agree with what I hearted.